What is it on? What's the streaming service? Oh, okay. DVD. I can't believe you still have DVDs. And Blow. You got some excellent choices
here. These are all the movies that I've watched with other people. I put on different movies.
Right. Well, I'm honored that you put this one on.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. And it worked out, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I'm happy you got to enjoy downstairs. You look
Sure,
properly
yeah.
baked. That's good.
It was the bong, man. That was the
Yeah.
one that I was like, oh, fuck. It's been a long time since I just ripped a bong, like, heavy. Because 99% of the time I'm just smoking joints that I've rolled, and so. And the fucking dabs. I didn't do one this time because we had to do this interview. But the High Bazaar, like, they got me all the time. And I'm like, I have things on my list I'm supposed to accomplish. And it'd be like an hour and a half later. I'm like, yo.
They all know down there that I don't do it. I don't dab until, like, it's the end of the night.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like an old man. I'm just like, oh, that new kid shit is really strong.
Did you smoke bubble back in the day? You remember bubble hash?
I mean, I did. And I definitely at festivals have bought bubble hash many times. That may or may not have been cannabis. Who knows what was in some of that random festy finds, but yes, it did. And my friend Andrew Lyons actually was all about the bubble.
That's awesome. I actually think I've heard that name before.
Strange Creek, he had a lot of bubble hash, and yeah, it was delicious.
So, yeah, dude, I told you that I know you grow. I heard that you grow great weed, and we smoked it. It's fucking great. You got to enjoy right
Should we smoke it right now?
Yeah, light it up, dude.
That's what I brought it for.
For the pod,
right? For the people.
You like how I put that like nice.
So
like,
I grew this.
Right there.
This is white banana truffle, and I'm very proud of it. And I do enjoy growing the act of growing weed. Like as a community activist, and I'm on my computer a lot. Like being able to be with plants under lights, and it really helped me during COVID. Like when things are pretty dark, for a while, and so. Sure.
That's the stoner move. I did that on one of my intros because I do an intro before these. Mm-hmm. So I was just like watching a movie stone, just like introducing the person. I was like, oh, it's just belly in the background.
That's
just
good
DMX. Like, yo, I don't care about running through red lights. Whoa. Yeah, we've had a lot of legacy growers on here though. Some that are growers in Maine too, and that are like
Connecticut. The rare Connecticut grower.
Yeah, there's not too many other ones, man, and it's cool that you're really doing it, and it's fire.
I enjoy it. That's why I haven't had to buy weed. I have yet to buy any significant amount from the Connecticut legal system, at all.
This is good as fuck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Where'd you get the seeds from?
EQ Genetics out of California. My dude Jason Mathis, who I actually met through Students for Sensible Drug Policy, which was the organization that I got to lead, but also that trained me how to be an activist in college. And Jason Mathis was on the national level organizing with us, but now he's a grower and a geneticist 10 years later and helping me out and actually was like, oh, I'm happy if you could grow my weed.
So you got into this kind of like newer. I see a lot of people I hear from the market, like in the legacy scene, is a lot of people who did it and then got out of it.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you think that is?
Well, I mean, the finances of it are definitely different. Like you get way less per pound now. That's definitely for sure. So it kind of depends what their goals were with growing to begin with. And it definitely gets to a certain point where the money is one of the driving factors. And I did see that after legalization, like the price per pound got cut in half almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so that, I think...
A lot of the dispensary open, a lot of people, I hear that too, people go in there.
But the thing I found was it got cut in half, but I would still move every single gram I grew.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was never a lack of demand. And so it's like, well... I know I can get rid of it, so maybe I should keep doing it. But if you do it at such a scale and you're like personally trimming shit, right? Like it just gets unwieldy. And if you're not getting a high enough at the end of the day check, then it's just not worth it.
So I want to ask you
I did scale down a bit.
I want to ask you a question too, and this is kind of, it's similar on topic, but it's somewhat off. But this is an interesting question I definitely wanted to ask you. Do you think people take advantage of the idea of the legacy market? And I'm not, and there's a couple ways that you might think of answering that, but I'm talking more about grassroots people who kind of take advantage of the idea of a legacy market, and they still don't even source their products and things like that. Like, do you think people are doing that?
I mean, very few folks in the legacy market, I think, have been sourcing. What do you mean by sourcing their products?
Like, are there a lot of them growing it? Do they know where it comes from? A lot of people are saying that legacy, like growers are in the legacy market, but they're just selling weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so like, I like to refer to the legacy market as the existing community infrastructure, right? I think there's this
That's
really,
dude. I love that. Like, no, for real though.
because think about it. Right now, the police and the politicians like, how do we get rid of the illicit
Yeah,
market, right?
Lamont said that 2 days ago, right?
Yes, I mean he said it many
Insane,
times,
dude.
many
Oh,
times,
really?
and he said that he's being successful at it, which he is not.
Yeah,
I
he's
can tell you,
clearly not.
he's definitely not.
Newsflash.
And, right, it's going strong,
Yeah,
fam,
no.
and
Yeah, there's no weed in dispensaries.
right, exactly, because they produced a bunch of moldy stuff was the real reason that happened. But like,
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, that's the thing. And they don't want to say that, of course, right? But how do you rapidly have a lack of cannabis when you're adding cultivators supposedly at a rapid level? Oh, when a huge chunk of the product has to get thrown in the garbage because it's filled with mold.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, instant
They
shortage.
just can't maintain their big facilities, just big business classic.
Well, because they don't
People coming in.
care. And I think that when we think about the legacy community, because this is the thing, the legacy market, we're talking about the market as if it's this physical thing. It's people that have personal relationships with each other. Some folks grow, some folks sell, and they connect and help each other figure out how to solve their problems, right? And so when we
Yeah.
think about we got to get rid of the illicit market, we're talking about a community of people we're trying to get rid of. And I think that makes it very easy for the state to demonize and to say normal people shouldn't be growing cannabis. Only a controlled setting with a pharmacist is necessary for people to touch the weed plant.
Yeah.
And it's the drug war 2.0, in my opinion, that it's not that weed is bad, but people that grow weed are bad if they do it without a license. And it's still in the interest of folks that are already powerful. And if we were to shift how we phrase this as the existing community infrastructure, that is not something that you want to eliminate. You
Why would
want
you?
to,
Yeah.
right? Why would you do that? There's existing community infrastructure, just line them up. Where this gets in the policy sense, so folks know, is in licensing, right? The state will say, yes, we're going to allow cannabis to be grown in Rhode Island, but only 3 people can grow it.
Right.
And call that legalization. It's not legalization. And that's why home grow is so important. And not every state has home grow. So like
a lot of states are trying to take away home grow, and they already implemented
New
it. Right?
Jersey still doesn't have home grow.
Again, we were talking about that. That's so wild, and they opened up the social clubs. So
Yep.
it's like that's so weird.
So we're corporatizing the plant. And the
Yeah.
legacy community is the antidote to or the corporatocracy in the cannabis space. Because the legacy community is an industry in a lot of ways, and it's a movement of people that are willing to break the law in order to do what they need to do to provide for their families. And so it's a community of people. And we have to remind all the politicians that it's not a problem to be solved. It's a community to be incorporated into the broader picture. Now, there is some trickiness of like, how do you prove that you're a legacy operator? Like, you can't. There's no way to do it. So there's no way to put it in the law that like legacy operators get X, right? Because it's like the status as an outlaw. Anybody can just claim they are, sure. Right. But there's no way to legally prove like, oh, in 08, you did sell 17 pounds to the local residents of whatever town. And so that means you're actually a drug dealer. Right. Like, I don't think that's what we should be trying to do is sort of like the good legacy versus the other legacy. For the most part, we can get rid of the bad actors by incorporating more of the existing community infrastructure into the legal situation. So it's just not worth it for them to produce at a dangerous level. And the states have refused to do that, though. And so it's really frustrating to hear them claim the illicit market is this big problem when they already know the answer and they refuse to do it.
Dude, thank you. That was a great answer to that question. Seriously, you're good at what you do, man. And I like the conversations we've had off camera too about the way you guys master communicating with the people, ways to be active, right, and to understand it, because I think that we get sold a lot of bullshit from the politicians, kind of like what you were saying, where they really try. They almost use fear. I mean, they do use fear.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their number one tactic. And
Yeah.
so this is why I think community organizing is so important, because it's about imbuing folks with hope and personal empowerment, right? That like these folks are going to tell you not to do this, they're going to tell you not to do that. And we're there to remind everybody that we can do whatever we want. Nobody actually enforces these rules that people just keep saying we can or can't do it this way. You know, prohibition aside, like that's definitely a different conversation. But if we decide we want to speak out or we want to organize, we want to have an event, we want to do something with the press, like it's on us to do it. And the more the politicians go unanswered, the more people feel down and cynical, the more people that commit to organizing their communities, it's exponentially going to empower folks to decide how they want to shape their communities in whatever way they think makes sense. And I'm happy to see that there are so many folks interested in it because it's very contagious.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things that if you train folks how to empower other people, people like being around those people because
Yeah,
you're
good
empowering
energy.
each other.
Good
Yeah,
energy. Yep,
for
positive
sure.
stuff.
And
It's
so
like meeting someone at the gym, right? Your guys are all in a
yeah,
place of trying
exactly.
to better
Yep.
themselves. Right?
Yeah, and like that's the vibe, right? It's just like, no, you can do it. Do more. You're stronger. You will be
Yes.
stronger, and I'm going to help you do it.
Yep.
And that's an interesting, analogy of that type of support system that you get at the gym
Mhm.
is what we hope, the movement would be. There's definitely been times where it's been more difficult to bring people together, right?
I'd say it's 50-50.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important to like understand our differences, but we can't let the understanding of our differences become like so much more important that we don't accomplish the main goal of why we're there together, which is ending the war on cannabis.
So why do you think there is a lot of like, all right, like I say, it's 50-50. What I mean by that is there does seem to be a lot of friction within the community where we all really should be one group and one entity who do want to like release people from. No one should be in prison for weed. It's just everybody knows this, But like, why do we bicker? I wonder. I think sometimes it's money, which is a lot of things.
Sure.
People are like supporting their families with this thing and so many things that change in their communities law wise and like even people's opinions who have power in this still small community and industry. Why do you think there is so much friction?
I mean, there's always going to be human drama in life, right? And so I don't think friction is necessarily bad in and of itself, but I think we're fighting against very difficult and powerful forces, and we're doing so through the political process that is designed to make us feel weak and powerless. And so when I got arrested in high school, right? Like I got thrown out and I got to learn a few phrases that changed how I look at law in society, right? I was 16, we were smoking on the way to school, and somebody called a security guard. And as soon as we got to campus, they surrounded us with their golf carts and their fancy big fat security guards and brought us into this room to wait to be arrested. And I was lit, right? And I didn't really know like what was happening. It was just like, why are you being so violent with me? Like I just stepped foot on campus. I did have more weed on me. They checked my bags. But still I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. And then the cops showed up. And when the cops come and put handcuffs on you and put chains on you,
Changes the
like law becomes a very different fucking thing very quickly.
Talk about fear, dude.
Yeah. And anger and confusion, right? Like I just didn't really understand. Like, what do you mean this guy's gonna take me away?
Kinda like
Fuck
your
you.
universe cracks a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that experience, was very traumatizing. I avoided incarceration. I did not go to jail or prison, because we paid lots of money for lawyers and it sucked. And it was, we go to court so many times, like, and the court experience was its own wild. I was 16 years old, 17. No, I was six. I had just turned 16 2 months before I got caught. Because it was in November, and I got my birthday's the 18th, and that shaped how I looked at what the law and legal system looks like. But being at home and being able to do my own research and actually having like 8 hours a day every single day to just go on the internet and look at whatever I wanted, and I learned about a few phrases: the school to prison pipeline, the war on drugs, and my favorite, selective enforcement. And selective enforcement was the one that really reshaped of like, why is this all happening?
Selective enforcement.
And that's the idea that you can disrupt certain communities by making something illegal for everyone, but only selectively enforcing it on certain communities. And so, generally speaking, that is poor people. And we filled up our jails with poor folks. And that is how the war on drugs really operated. That it wasn't that me as an individual is like this moral problem of smoking weed. It's that there's politicians and companies and private prisons that profit off of sending me to jail for smoking weed. And so once I saw all of that, right, the like, why is it that we're so divided is like because they're designing these spaces to do that. And so the way you get around that is organizing outside of the legal system in your own spaces in sessions like this, right, where you provide space to talk to each other and build relationships and build community and decide how we're going to push back on the system. And as we have tried, actually, we've had a lot of successes doing that. Like we have 25 states, 24 plus DC, that are now adult use. mixed results on the
It is
details. But
rapidly
yeah.
increasing.
And
Yeah.
so we can't ignore the fact that we're winning a lot of battles,
Yeah.
like over and over and over again. And what the legacy community and existing community infrastructure like
Mhm.
represent in getting bills passed and political power, like we are bigger than the industry. And I think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah.
And it is now the moment, right, for us to remind everybody of that and that we're not going to say law abiding, but we are, positive members of the communities that are leaders and lawyers and doctors and nurses and teachers and everything in between. And
Also, us who have embraced this lifestyle, who aren't going away from it, who love everything about the
Sure.
plant, the hustle, the business, the communication, the connections we get in it, and it's I think that's a big reason why a lot of these big companies like the MSOs aren't making money.
Sure.
And they have quarterly reports that aren't good. Trust me.
So, but
it's
let
a
me
fact.
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you love being in the legacy community.
Yeah.
Like, and what
I can't
about
run away from it.
But would you run away from it if you could?
I've tried.
You tried. What happened?
I got caught in Illinois in 2013 with 14 pounds and
Dece.
a pound of the shatter. It was shatter.
Oh,
And that was
a pound
then.
of shatter.
Different game, dude. Different ball game. So I was caught up in Illinois, and I was facing 10 years in Cook County. But I was a white kid with no priors. I had like 20 G's saved up. I was there for like 2 weeks and just got a lawyer and got it changed to a Schedule 1. And I had to go on probation for 7 years. Where it was literally, I just watched it happen, and I learned so much. I was like a white kid who had no priors that like I was in front of a judge, and he was like, "Do you know like what you like? Are you gonna basically change your life?" And I was like, "Yes, sir. Yes,
Sure,
sir.
of
Yes,
course.
sir. Yes, sir."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I got away with
smart, yeah.
it. You know, and but I at that point was on probation, and I was selling weed since 2008. So I was doing T-shirts as like a cover. That's how I got in the T-shirt industry, and I didn't sell weed for
wash
a couple
that
years.
money a little somehow, right?
Absolutely. And I didn't sell weed for 2 years, and I went really into my T-shirt business, and I started throwing these events and traveling, similar to kind of what I do now, but in T-shirts, it all comes together.
Sure.
But to wrap that up is it failed, and I was down on my luck, and I just picked up selling weed again because a friend of mine grew outdoor harvest, and I actually didn't want to see anyone. It wasn't the money; it was an excuse to go talk to people. And I knew it before, but I learned then that my purpose on this planet is to connect people. It's not even the weed. I think that we could get into a whole nother thing with that, but I will answer your question. But that's where I found that. That's where I learned. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Where like I know I can't leave it. I've tried and it doesn't work. It always comes back to me. It's not just. I believe in a spiritual. I'm very spiritual, so like I think that there's something with the plant because it gives you a feeling.
Sure.
It's a natural made thing from this planet, just like us, and it gives you a feeling. So what I try to do is give people a feeling before they go home with a product and they get another feeling. It's like telling stories, and I use that with. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah,
giving
absolutely.
lineage
Yes.
and storytelling,
Getting litty.
educating people and getting them good source product and giving them stories and
Sure.
making them feel good. That's like really what it is. So I don't know, but that's my answer to that question is like, that's why, like, I don't think I can. And there's so many people like me.
Yep. Well,
There's
and
so
I
many
think
people who like won't go away. Like, I don't know. Like it's hard to explain sometimes.
it is hard to explain, especially to folks that have never tried to engage in it because it's such a autonomous lifestyle, right? Like you handle yourself and all of your businesses outside of the traditional machinery, right? And I remember when I was younger and selling a lot of weed and I was making more than my dad.
Oh yeah.
Like that moment was just like, yo, this whole thing is crazy.
Were you young too?
Like early 20s, yes,
Yeah,
like
so
23,
it's
24.
so weird
yeah.
when it's at that age
Yeah.
too, like it because we're
And
so
we're
like
doing the math.
fresh-minded, right?
Yeah, and it's like, wait a minute, my
Like,
dad.
yeah, what's going on here?
My dad goes to work at like 7:00 in the morning and comes back at 4, and like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
but to see and the economics of it, right, is
Yeah.
so wild, and so, but it is. Like it's a lifestyle that's welcoming to anyone who has the initiative to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so those that thrive under that, like the people that like to do hard things,
Yeah.
it is so liberating to be able to handle your business without relying on really anybody else. And as a grower, because when I shifted from selling to growing,
Yeah.
it's even more stable and like safer. I sell all my weed to 2 people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's it. And so it's like every few months, there we go.
Yeah.
Right. And so it
That's how it should be,
the
like small
community
farmer
part of
stuff.
it is really like fascinating that it does bring all kinds of different folks together all over the place.
Yep.
And there's nothing quite like it. Like maybe drug policy, but like it
You know
is
what? The
it is a
similar
beautiful thing to see.
Similar
Yeah.
things I see is all art forms. That's why I always try to call it art.
Sure.
So like I don't know, I watch a lot of podcasts and a lot of comedian podcasts. That's a popular thing. They always say like, "Oh, it doesn't matter who you are, but you're a comic."
Sure.
They all work on their
Yeah, yeah.
shit. It's like
Yeah.
or like people who played in the big leagues in sports. A lot they like understand.
Yeah.
I think in music too, like people who like are struggling and trying to get themselves out there. Like people talk about the business. You know, you got to know. That's similar with
Right.
our
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you connect with people, like, oh, you're in it.
Yeah,
Especially with
yeah.
activism, I'm sure.
Sure.
You know,
A
It's like-
lot of legacy folks in that space.
Yeah.
A lot.
so I think you get that a lot of people. So what's funny is like I come from the legacy market and I can't go anywhere from it. But I just told you we got our tier 3 in New York.
Right. Yeah.
So I deal with a
mean,
lot of
like,
people
yeah.
who don't smoke weed, who are getting in the industry, who've taught me a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I try never to hate on a lot of like it's easy to hate on big business and weed. Where
Sure.
I keep my mouth shut.
Well, some of them I'm gonna hate on them. I'll be honest, but
Absolutely. But I'm just saying that a lot of people,
Yeah.
I try to keep my mouth shut and listen. Where
Uh,
like
I
all
know,
of us,
I've been flapping my lips all year.
but all of us should be taking things from each other. You know what
Sure.
I mean? Like whoever wants to be in this business, who come from it, you got to understand that there's others out there that know a little bit, not even more than you, that are in a different
Always,
environment. You know
yeah.
what I mean? I
Mhm,
think that you see a lot of people in this industry try like you gotta like they'll be like that's their custies or whatever, but like you should listen to your custies, bro.
Sure.
And you know what I
sure.
mean? They make
Yeah.
the world go round. That's why for real though, it's like they
Put on a T-shirt, man.
Dude, that's-
Custies make the world go round.
that's a great take. That's happening. But you know, this podcast is literally that. Like, because there's so many. The only weed podcasts I see are for like growers. They're like talk about growing.
Yeah, and
I
they can be
tried-
kind of
yeah.
boring sometimes.
I try to figure out a way through storytelling, like I was saying about the music and
Sure.
film stuff, is through storytelling get people to learn more, like end consumers, people who are buying eighths every week.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times this stuff is like it makes it feel like they're their own little club. That's why I asked you that question. Why, like with the animosity, it seems like a lot of people. It's so cliquey.
It is. I mean, folks are trying to figure it out, and I've found that there's not good examples, right, of like how to bring people together in a big, giant cohort. And there's just not enough community organizers, I think, really, because with 420, though, we were able to bring lots of folks together that normally don't get along. And I do think being able to ask folks in a way and at a scale necessary, I think that's the biggest problem is that the scale necessary to do it is so big that you're gonna have smaller groups breaking into, smaller factions and things like that.
Yeah.
And it just has to be very proactively like addressed and give the different types of groups something to do. I think that's another piece of it. Like a lot of folks are really good at saying what they don't like, but drafting a bill, pushing a piece of policy, or picking a particular campaign and like being the person in leadership to do that. Folks can be a bit cynical, and the leader gets a lot of questions and a lot of pressure and a lot of like opposing asks that they have to figure out how to navigate a third way all the time. And so I think we let the money side of it in the activist world get too much of a hold on what we're talking about on a regular
Yeah.
basis. Like the safe banking stuff and like just some of the other things are just not really about our community. We just kind of let it happen. Like I wouldn't say it was like very active, but we lost something there. And I think folks got catty when the momentum shifted down a little bit. But I also feel like COVID happened. You
Yeah.
know, like that was another thing. And we're
Rocked
coming
everything.
out of that now, where now people are much more interested in building bridges and meeting new people and creating new things and pushing in new directions. And so it was definitely an issue, right? And it's an issue everywhere. Everybody says like, no, my place is particularly catty. But I think we are moving into a different space where the folks that do want to create and build are finding each other, and the folks that want to complain about it can watch us from home.
Right on, dude.
Yeah.
That was a mic drop, dude. Don't drop it.
No, I won't.
No, that's great, man. I learned a lot from you coming up here, and that's what I'm so very lucky, man, with this. No, like even
Well,
like,
it's not luck, right? Like you put in the work to create this space to get
on.
in our orbit, right? And
Yeah.
so like I always want to give everybody the like proper credit and flowers for like
Thank
you did the work, man.
I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, and like I was, yeah, it's funny because it's funny that you got me to put that on there, and I respect you for that because there's not a lot of people who even know that about me, obviously, because you know how that is, dude.
Sure.
You know, I talk, we talk a lot about trauma, about like PTSD from the weed stuff.
Sure.
Like I think people got a little hint of it when we talked about the handcuffs and the cracking of the
I've
universe.
had 3 guns pulled on me.
Brother.
Yeah.
It's
At one point in my chest one time.
dude, and you know what I always tell? I don't know if you have this too. Like as you know, anyone who's really sold weed, I feel like even if it's like legit, like it's the proper amount or whatever, I'm like always looking in my mirrors.
Yeah,
I can't drive
know,
without
yeah.
looking in my mirrors.
Sure, I do all the time.
Yeah,
man.
you know what I
Like,
mean. And it's like you're like
and I
because you just
still
always
get
like
nervous.
if they pull me over, I'm fucked.
Right. I mean, like even when I'm not fucked, like I will have like almost no weed on me, and I will still
That's
get
what I mean.
nervous. Yeah,
It's
yeah. Right. Exactly, and it sucks.
Right? I mean, it's trauma from everything
But-
we've talked about today.
Yes, and folks like yourself and all the other activists that the young folks growing up today like don't have that trauma, right? Many, not all of them, right? But a significant
Flowers,
reduction.
Thank you to people like you, Last Vision Project.
Well,
for real though.
yeah, and the thousands of other activists that have helped make it happen over the years. The folks that made it possible for me to go to college changed the Higher Education Act's federal aid elimination penalty between when I graduated from high school and when I applied to UConn. So because there were activists focused specifically on something so narrow of like this particular penalty for drugs and Department of Education, I never would have been able to go to UConn, and I never would have found SSDP as a student and learn, never would have become the executive director of SSDP, and then probably never would have led the legalization effort for Connecticut. And so it's knowing that the impact of activists that came before me was so huge for me personally. That is what keeps all the movement going, right? Being able to do that, to plant the seeds that, you won't live to see the shadow of, kind of thing. And so as a product of like the negative situations with the war on drugs, but also positively impacted by activism, that is why I've always had faith that like, not only can we do it, people have already done it. We're going to create all new ways of getting it done. And everyone, just like the weed game, politics and activism invites everyone to participate, and you don't have to ask for permission to be an activist. It might be helpful to get some
Sometimes
folks on
you
your
just gotta
side,
show up, and you'll be surprised at the opportunities you could like speak from your heart.
right? And if
and make
things
some
aren't
change.
happening, you can create it, and you can build a campfire, invite friends around, and say, "Hey, we got to talk about this issue. What do we want to do?" Right? Like it can be relatively small. If you're a person that's isolated, there's lots of things you can do there, but building community and just saying, "Hey, do you guys care about weed policy or shroom policy or whatever drug policy makes the most sense?" Like we as individuals always have the power to gather people and talk about something, right? And you literally need nothing other than relationships to do that. And so as far as like what people can always do, gathering people at its base form and smoke weed with them, right? Or whatever, eat good food together. That is always like everybody can do that.
Good.
Yeah, it feels good. Like it does help, right? Because that's how bigger movements are filled with smaller tribes and clans that all decide at the same time we're gonna support each other.
Hey man, well, I appreciate you so much. And as we're wrapping up this extra episode, we didn't get into the psilocybin thing, but what we'll do is we got a couple months out. But I would love to book you in here again.
Sure.
And we'll go right on mushrooms.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
Because I'm actually sneak peek on that is I got a crazy story about how it was bad for me, like how it was given to me and I wasn't able to take them anymore, and how much I've microdosed into tea to get myself back to, and how much it's changed my life. So we will get into that.
It is a different molecule, but
completely. But we'll get into that. But dude, I learned a lot. I'm going to the 420 thing.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Looking to see you there. We're gonna make it the biggest, baddest thing anyone's ever seen.
Sounds good, man. Thank you for everything you do for us.
Cheers.
Right on, brother.